All right, so in this video, we are going to be continuing on where we left off last time in polyrhythms, this time focusing on the 3 against 4 polyrhythms. Now, as we learned before, this tells us of 2 different polyrhythms, 3/4 and 4/3. 4/3 is exactly where we're going to start today. So what we see in example 1 sets up our quarter note layer. So we've got 3 quarter notes on the bass drum that sets up our 3. Now, on top of this, we're going to need to fit 4 evenly spaced notes, but we're going to get to that in the following steps. So, to start out, let's just rock with these 3 quarter notes on our bass drum. 1, 2, 3. Now, to make our 4 layer, we're going to need to play a snare drum. Now, quick little side note, this could be on literally any instrument. The fact that we're using the snare is arbitrary. Anyway, to do this, we need 3 16th notes. We're gonna have 1 E and A, 2 E and A, 3 E and A. We get 4 equally spaced notes across this bar of 3, 4, and this gives us our 4 layer. So let's just try this with counting and clapping first, and then we'll put it together actually on the snare drum. So just follow along here. We've got 1 E and A, 2 E and A, 3 E and A, 1 E and A, 2 E and A, 3 E and A. This itself is the polyrhythmic layer. Anyway, let's try it on the snare drum before we put it all together. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and A. Now that we've got all the pieces, now we've got to put them together as a single polyrhythmic phrase. So for this, we've still got our kick and quarter notes. We've got that same rhythm we just played on the snare drum, but now they're going to interact. Let's try it out. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a. And now let's hear the same thing just a little bit quicker. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a. All right, so now that we've put both of those pieces together and made our 4/3 polyrhythm, just take a quick look at example 1D and notice that it's the exact same thing we just played, but notated slightly different. Anyway, the next polyrhythm that we're going to look at is 3/4. So this time our bottom number is 4. So that tells us we have a bar of 4/4 time, and we're going to be spreading 3 equally spaced notes across it. To do this, we're going to need 8th note triplets, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just get this quarter note layer happening first. Again, we've got bass drum quarter notes, and we're in 4/4 time. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so now when we're putting together our 3 layer, you're going to need to think back to a lesson that we did on half note triplets, because it's exactly this. We've got a bar of 4/4. We're going to count 8th note triplets while playing every 4th one of those, which again just is half note triplets. You already know this one. So let me just hear it with counting and clapping first as a quick little refresher before we toss this down on the snare drum. So that sounds like this. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet. 4 triplet, 1, 2, 3, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. So we get 3 evenly spaced notes across a bar of 4/4 time. Let's put it together on the snare drum before we pile both of these rhythmic layers into the same thing. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet. All right, so now we've got both pieces. We've got our quarter note on the bass drum. We've got our snare drum playing essentially half note triplets. When we put them together, this is actually another fun little bonus. We already covered this at the very end of the half note triplet lesson, where I was splashing my hi-hats with the kick drum and playing that rhythm down the toms. If you tried that, you've already played this polyrhythm. So Let's hear exactly what this sounds like when we put them together just between the bass drum and the snare drum, so it's particularly clear. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. And a little bit quicker. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. All right, and just like last time, if you take a look at example 2D, we see the same thing written one alternate way as well. Again, especially with drum notation, there's multiple ways to express the same thing. So this is just giving you an idea of how you're gonna see these things when you see them actually within a musical context. All right, so now you have covered 3/4 and 4/3. Your assignment for this lesson is to dive into each of the examples that we worked on here and just get them nice and comfortable. Quick little note on how to practice these. Take it slow and don't worry about your metronome to start. Just count out loud, line up each piece exactly where it's supposed to go, and when you can loop it comfortably, then worry about your metronome. Of course, starting nice and slow, but also pick the tempo up to a bit of a peppier place. Once you've done that, it's time to move on to the next lesson in our polyrhythm/polymeter section of the Drumeo method. I'll see you guys there.